Do you want to have the information to manage your economy better and beyond all reason? By the end of this video, you'll be given the knowledge to do that. BAR has three kinds of resources: metal, energy, and the least understood, build power. This video will discuss each resource individually and give you foundational knowledge along the way. Let's get into it. Metal is generally regarded as the most important resource. This is because metal is usually the limiting resource when someone is trying to build something. For example, when trying to build your Tier 2 lab or fusion reactor. So then, how do we get metal? Metal is produced from metal extractors or MEXs placed on metal nodes and from converting energy into metal. You can also reclaim metal from wrecks left by destroyed units or from rocks and structures, which you should do whenever possible. Given these options, the most efficient way to produce metal is using metal extractors on metal nodes. Specifically, T1 mexes pay for themselves, given they're on a 2.0 metal node, in 28 seconds. The next fastest payoff comes from the T2 mex at 91 seconds for ARM and 94 seconds for Core. Speaking of T2 mexes, what is the difference between T1 and T2? T2 are much more expensive and take longer to pay off. However, they give you 4 times the amount of metal from the same metal node. This is why commanders prioritize getting T2 mexes. You should aggressively expand and take mexes. One last note on mexes is that they take energy to function. So if you stall on energy, you will stop producing metal. The second way to produce metal is through excess energy. You should only do this after taking all of your mexes, as conversion is less efficient. When your energy income exceeds the conversion slider, you'll begin to convert energy into metal if you have converters. A couple of notes on converters. T1 converters take 1 metal and 1150 energy for ARM and 1250 energy for Core to build. This means that they pay for themselves after 18 seconds or so, given you have 70 energy per second excess. Alternatively, Tier 2 converters have a much higher cost. T2 converters are 380 metal for ARM and 370 metal for Core, with both costing 21,000 energy. The Core T2 converter is about 10% cheaper on build power than ARM as well. The increase in efficiency is that rather than 70 energy getting converted into one metal, now it is 58 energy. Given that you are accessing 600 energy per second, the Tier 2 converter will pay for itself in around 65 seconds. This is, of course, independent of the energy producing structure, which will make total payback time vary greatly. A more interesting scenario would be to talk about the payoff time of building an ARM Fusion compared with the T2 Geo, each with 2 Tier 2 converters. This is assuming these are all built instantly for simplicity. The energy adjusted cost for an ARM Fusion is 4600 metal, and adding the 2 Tier 2 converters brings in the total metal investment to 5960. So that means 1000 energy per second being converted at a rate of 58 energy per metal brings payoff time to 347 seconds, or a little less than 6 minutes. Alternatively, accounting for energy with a similar scenario, the advanced Geo will pay for itself in 162 seconds, or about 2 3/4 minutes. This is because the total metal investment of the T2 Geo is 3,345 metal. All this is to say, your energy producing structure matters. There's a lot more to it than this when choosing energy structures that we are about to get into when breaking down energy. As important as metal is, you can have all the metal in the world, and if you have no energy, you can't spend it. That's a situation you never want to be in. Energy is produced in two main ways. The main way is building structures such as wind or solars, and the second is reclaiming finite energy resources from trees or crystals on the map. At T1, you have wind, tidal, solar, advanced solar, and geo. Wind and tidal vary based on mapped specific values. Solar, advanced solar, and geo are stable across maps. At Tier 2, there's the addition of even more powerful and stable energy production with Fusion, Tier 2 Geo, and Advanced Fusion or APHIS. There's enough depth to each building that I could make a video on each structure's nuances. If that sounds interesting, I'll do it. Let me know in the comments below if I should. However, in terms of a basic guide, I want to give general recommendations to get you started. The high points are geos are OP. As a general rule, you should make every effort to take control of geovents and get them built from T1 to T2 as soon as possible, following taking your mexes. You might have guessed this after the example given in the metal production section comparing fusion to Tier 2 geo. Number 2, T1 solars have a very high metal cost for energy output. Compared to wind turbines on a map averaging 15 wind, a solar is making 20 divided by 150 or 0.13 energy per metal, where an arm wind turbine would be 15 divided by 42.5 or 0.35 energy per metal, roughly triple. On maps with low or no wind, it is perfectly reasonable to build a lot of basic solars. Another way to think about them is as a metal storage that produces a small amount of energy. As you get to Tier 2 energy structures, you want to make sure to reclaim them and use the metal to build more T2 structures. Number 3, spamming wind is OP on high wind maps. For example, adjusted for energy cost, 251 wind turbines is the same metal cost as an APHIS. The thing is, given you have adequate build power and wind is an average of 15, that same investment in wind instead of APHIS could be making you 3,765 energy per second instead of 3,000 energy per second. This, in addition to not having to wait until the APHIS is finished to begin producing energy. A final note on wind is that energy storages, usually one or two, are your friend, and wind will find a way to go to zero when you need it most. Number 4, the relative build power cost differs dramatically across energy producing structures. For example, an ARM APHIS takes 312,500 build power. That's a ton. To further illustrate my example from point 3, remember 251 winds costs the same as an APHIS? Well, you'll need 402,285 build power to make them. Not to mention walk between them. If you're curious about wind energy specifically, I've linked a guide that digs into that in more detail. All this is to say, building energy structures is not always as it seems in terms of cost. On energy reclaim, taking reclaim is regarded as extremely strong in the early game. It is common to make a handful of resbots to do this. An important note on energy reclaim is that maps have varying build power requirements. For example, on Supreme Isthmus, the trees can be reclaimed by a resbot at around 60 energy per second, where on Flats and Forests it is only 30. Now for probably the least understood resource, build power. As with not having the energy to spend your metal, if you don't have build power, you can spend neither. You can get in scenarios where your economic output is greater than your build power and you will float or overflow metal and energy. If this is happening, you should scale up your build power and or make storage. So how does it work? Let's use a simple example. A solar panel takes 2800 build power to make. This means that given you have a constructor with 100 build power, which none do by the way, it will take 28 seconds to build. What you're probably more familiar with is a commander making a solar panel, so let's use that case. Your commander has 300 build power per second. How long does it take to build a solar? It would be 2800 build power divided by 300 build power per second, which is 9.3 seconds. What goes on in those 9.3 seconds? Well, we know that a core solar is 150 metal, so over those 9.3 seconds, the 150 metal will be spent evenly, or to put another way, your commander will spend 150 metal divided by 9.3 seconds, or around 16 metal per second. What about if there's energy? It's the same thing. A wind turbine is another easy example. We know that one arm wind costs 40 metal and 175 energy and is 1600 build power. So, your commander will build it in 1600 divided by 300, or 5.3 seconds, and pull 7.5 metal and 33 energy per second. Now that we understand how it works, which units are the best build power? You might be surprised to learn that the most efficient unit for build power is the ARM T2C Engineer, coming in at only 190 metal for 200 build power. I'm guessing half the people watching haven't made a T2C engineer in a game, though. So, in the real world, what you need to know is that a construction turret is the most efficient build power per cost in terms of metal, at just over 1 metal per build power. Construction turrets will also chain when touching, so decide if safety or build power density is more important. On frontline, I would err towards spacing them out so they don't chain, and it is more important to have them together for build power density in the backline. If you need mobile build power, the most efficient mobile land metal per build power is the T1 construction bot at 1.3 for ARM and 1.4 for core. If you found this helpful or entertaining and want to support the channel, you can do that by liking, commenting, and if I've earned it, subscribing. Let me know if you have any notes on the math or questions on this topic or others in the comments below. Want to see these concepts in action? Here they are in real time in these high level matches.